Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Tottenham on Tour with a special show today, all about a special manager and a special game. And to complete the hat trick, I've got a special guest by the name of Ian Meth. How are you, good sir?
I'm good. I'm good. All is good in the world of Tottenham for once, Brian. It makes a nice change that everybody's batting on the same side for once. Ignoring your campaign on the side, I think nobody's under any illusions that there's a real revolution taking place and a big revolution in a very short space of time, which is only just beginning, by the way.
Yep.
This is it. This is just the first phase.
It is. And for everyone also, the reason we're doing this show is obviously Ange Postecoglou, like Ian just said, is I'm still in amazement of what he has achieved in such a short space of time. But once Antonio Conte was sacked and everyone was talking about who's coming in and who should it be? Should it be Nagelsmann? Should it be this one? Should it be that one? There's a certain person by the name of Ian who I speak to regularly who kept saying from the get-go, Ange Postecoglou, Ange Postecoglou, Ange Postecoglou. And he was the one person, and I will always give credit where it's due, completely went on about the wonder that is the manager we're going to talk about. And for people that don't know, Ian actually lives in Glasgow, Spurs fan born and bred, London born and bred, but is living up in Glasgow and has a very keen interest in Glasgow Celtic and has watched Ange Postecoglou flourish into his role in Celtic and now what he's doing at Spurs. And he could see it. I mean, Ian, tell everyone what, first of all, attracted you to him and go into it about, can you believe how quickly he's done this at Spurs?
I'm astonished at the speed. In all fairness, we'll talk about Derby later, but he lost 3 of his first 6 games at Celtic, and the team in Japan, I should have had a note of it, Fushirami or whatever it was, they were nearly relegated in his first season and then lost and then won the league the following season. It usually is a slower start, but I think one of the important things is that this is the best set of players that he's ever worked with, and it's the best set of players by a distance, which is one of the things that, of course, people were saying he's never coached at this level, he's never worked with this breed of player, etc. I don't think it matters. I think it's a bit like teaching. I think if you can teach, you can teach, and if you can coach, you can coach. The other thing is, since Pochettino left, let's be honest, the football has been dire now. Yeah. I'm a little bit older than you. I'm a little bit older than most of the people that watch these shows. But I was brought up under watching initially under Bill Nicholson, and then Terry Neal and a couple of imposters. But then we had Keith Birkinshaw, and the football under Keith Birkinshaw was absolutely wonderful. The last 4 years with Conte and Mourinho has just been absolutely dire. And let's not talk about Levy, but I think Levy was trying to find a quick solution.
Yep.
To the ingrained problems that were at the club, and it manifestly didn't work. This is a coach that revolutionizes football clubs. He goes in, and we've all talked about this, he goes into clubs and he gets rid of the dross. I mean, the team that he started with at the beginning at Celtic, I think only 3 survived the season. So that's what he does. He goes in and he revolutionizes football clubs, which is something that we have needed. The second thing is the football he plays is high octane, front foot, pressing high, winning the ball. It's attacking. It's 1-2 touch, and I think there's more to come from us around in the penalty area, a lot more. And I thought that was exactly what Tottenham needed. So for those 2 principal reasons, I thought he was absolutely the perfect fit. I understand the inexperience at this level, but I just don't think that mattered. And what you can see is that the players obviously like him. The players are playing for him. There is a togetherness about the squad. You see the reactions off the bench. You see the way they're sort of hugging each other and high-fiving each other. It's not faked. They're clearly enjoying their football, and particularly those that have been there for a little while. When you look at, and you even look at established players or players that have been here for a little bit, like Bissouma. Well, Bissouma may as well be a new signing, because what Conte did with him was criminal. And putting him in that little box around the edge of the D on the half circle around the halfway line, and saying that's where you play. No wonder the boy was confused and what have you. We saw. I mean, when you look at the European game in Milan, you look at how well Sarr and indeed Skip played. You think, yep, that's a way going forward. Does he play Sarr again? Hardly at all. So these were desperately bad decisions. And Bissouma and Sarr are two players that Conte had and are now absolutely flourishing. In fact, if you said who were the two best players that we've got this season, that we've had this season, those two would be right up at the top. I mean, there's been a lot. Romero's been a revelation. The goalkeeper's done really well. Maddison, of course, coming in. But so it just shows you what good coaches can achieve with good players, and how good players will respond to good coaching.
You're right. And we'll go back a bit as well, because when I remember with Celtic, and I remember seeing this on TalkSport with Alan Brazil, and obviously you'll be able to relate a bit more living there. When he first came in to Celtic, a lot of the fans were in uproar, weren't they? They were like Arsenal with Arsene Wenger. It was like, Ange who? And what the hell is going on? And showed how quick that turned around, didn't it?
That's 100% right. And what people may not know or may not remember is Celtic spent the summer of 2021 courting Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe was coming to Celtic for weeks, and it was just a matter of tying up things. You do wonder with any deal like this, if it doesn't get done, why is it not got done? And there's no one, I think, knows the full story, but the word on the street seemed to be couldn't agree a deal for his backroom staff to all come up, and the relocation packages and what have you. So that went out the window. And fairly soon thereafter, the name of Postecoglou came up, and it was like, who? But Celtic have had that before, and they pulled some rabbits out the hat. And it didn't take long. It seriously didn't take long for him to start transforming the club and for them to play, start seeing some really good football. Because even under Gordon Strachan, latterly under Martin O'Neill and under Neil Lennon, much as there was a lot of winning trophies domestically, the football wasn't always great. And Celtic, again, is a very traditional with and similar to Tottenham under Jock Stein, and the way that Celtic played under Jock Stein as we played under Bill Nicholson. That Celtic supporters, like Tottenham supporters, crave to see football played the right way.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long. It didn't take long. And of course, the other thing is when he took over at Celtic, they just lost the league. They were going for 10 in a row, a historic 10 in a row, because it had never bbeen done before in Scotland. And they blew it, and they lost the league by, it was either 24 or 25 points.
Which is crime in Scotland.
That's a massive turnaround for a team that's finished 24, 25 points ahead of you to finish 3 or 4 ahead of them to win the title and play glorious football at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, before we start talking about the derby, obviously up there, the one thing I do need to know is, obviously, through this appointment of ours and the great man coming to us, Spurs YouTube accounts and channels are obviously attracting a lot of Australians and a lot of Celtic fans saying, I want to watch, because obviously there's a vested interest. First of all, this man, even though he's left the club, is loved by everyone that leaves him, and they still look out for him and follow him dearly. Yeah. But I'm hearing a lot of things that they're already not happy because of the difference with going back to Brendan Rodgers
Yeah.
As I've heard people saying it's just not the same. The atmosphere in the stadium, the style of football. I mean, what's the general gist going around? And your first-hand knowledge, obviously, lived in Glasgow, of what the Celtic fans are feeling with the departure of Ange.
Yeah. A couple of things. I mean, generally people wish Ange well, but there are obviously a lot that will say he's dead to me, typical, he used us as a stepping stone, etc. That's always going to happen, and that will happen to us if we do well, we win a couple of things, and the next thing Real Madrid come calling. There is always a bigger club than you, or for most teams there is a bigger team than you. Under Rodgers, now, two things. One, Celtic have had a lot of injuries, and there are 2 men sent off in Rotterdam last night. So that will be suspensions. I mean, Starfeld's out. Carter Vickers, who was a revelation for Celtic, particularly last season, has had a long-term injury. So Celtic are really short of players. The other thing is that with Champions League money guaranteed, that they've not gone out and spent that much money, and there's a little bit of parsimony. The Celtic transfer fund used to be known as the biscuit tin, because that's how parsimonious they were in terms of spending, even more cautious than us. But under Rodgers, there's a lot of possession, but there's possession that doesn't appear to have much purpose to it. They get the ball knocking about, and you saw that in Rotterdam last night. They did very well until it was a goal just before half time, a free kick. Kyogo in the wall, wrong player in the wall, should have been a bigger player, but broke slightly. Ball went through, ball dropped in front of Hart to his left, but he should have stopped it. Man sent off early in the second half, harsh red card, penalty was missed, but that was also a second yellow, so a red. And then a few minutes later, the Norwegian boy Holm got sent off as well for a pretty horrific 2-footed tackle. They were down to 9 and did well, and frankly did well to survive with 2. But the football that Celtic have played this season hasn't been that good. But they won at Ibrox. They managed to win at Ibrox. Against Rangers aren't a great side at the moment either, but somehow Celtic managed to conjure a win out of that, and that was important. But there's a lot of improving to be done, and Celtic fans will miss the intensity. I think that's one of the things that I loved about Ange's teams, or Ange's team at Celtic, and what he's done at Tottenham is that intensity, that high press, high octane. And he will use substitutes a lot more than Conte ever did. Players are tiring or whatever. I mean, he used substitutes on Saturday because he needed a break, so he changed his forward line. But he will make changes as and when he needs, particularly if players are giving a really solid hour of that high-octane football and can't give any more. And he'll have a replacement ready, and I say the next 2 transfer windows, he'll have an extra player for every position that can come on and you not see a difference.
Well, this is a good thing, and like you just said about that, and it's good you mentioned the derby, because that's where we're going to start moving towards. But you mentioned subs. Every Premier League game, he's made all 5 subs, which is showing what you said: the rotation, the giving players the rest, the change. I mean, the formation change that he made for Sheffield United to chuck off a defender and an extra midfielder just goes to show the difference from Conte last season, when we needed a goal and he brought in a defender. So, but getting on to derbies, and this is what this show is all about. Obviously, we're going to talk about the big one that's coming up on Sunday, but most importantly, obviously, Ian, and main reason for this show is he was in charge of a very, very big derby, probably one of the biggest in the world, based on football and every other thing that goes on with these 2 clubs. Now, obviously, he's come from, as you said, different leagues where, there may be rivalries, but nowhere near a Rangers Celtic or a Tottenham Arsenal. These are the big boy days that you get the big boy jobs for. How was he? We're going to dive into it on the media aspect, the way he approached it. What was he like for Derby week when it was the Old Firm coming up?
He wasn't any different. What went on behind the scenes, we don't know. And obviously there is much more scrutiny. There's always one thing I think you got to realise is the media scrutiny amongst Rangers and Celtic is so intense, and I suspect it's probably the same as Barcelona getting in Barcelona and Real getting in Madrid, where everything you say and do is taken down and what have you. But one of the things about Ange is, he's a real what you see is what you get, man. He just calls it as it is. And that's, I think, what everybody loves about him. I thought a classic quote on Saturday when about, Spurs getting carried away and, the fans getting carried away and what have you. And, basically, do you need to manage expectations downwards? And it was, no, mate, I ain't going to burst their bubble. That's not my job. But he will expect that he can take this team all the way. I don't think it would have occurred to him that he can't. And it would have been the same in Glasgow. He wouldn't have taken that job if he didn't think he could take Celtic and overturn that 24-point gap, because a 24-point gap with Rangers is massive. I mean, that really is a massive chasm, even though Celtic had won, the previous 9 titles. And I don't think he'll be any different this week. I think he'll just call it as he sees it. He'll give honest assessments of everything. But the thing is, he won't be under the same scrutiny. He'll be under a lot of scrutiny, particularly from Football London and stuff like that. But there won't be the intensity of navel gazing, or it's not really the right expression, but of excuse me, I need a drink there.
No, far away. Have a little drink. Take a. Do you know what? I'll join you. You.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
There we go. So
there won't be the intensity of scrutiny this week as there was in Glasgow.
You know what? I think there may be just for and I'm not talking about from people Spurs and Arsenal. I think the way the media has obviously been with Tottenham Hotspur recently, and the supporters, and I'm part of that as well. With whatever you want to add, the football, we've been under the microscope, whether it be Harry Kane, whether it be the board, whether it be chopping and changing managers, whether it be stuff. You got to remember the last few North London derbies, especially at the Emirates, we have been nothing short of abysmal at the Emirates and shocking. And I think the world media are waiting, like everyone's now talking about us positively. You've seen it's been a 180 on Spurs now. Oh, I'm so excited to watch Spurs play. Look at Spurs playing this. I think there's a lot of scrutiny on him coming from outside of Tottenham or London newspapers. I think the world, and this is a big game, this is a worldwide game, just like Rangers Celtic. I think there's a lot of scrutiny and people looking down on him or waiting for him to mess up to say, I told you so.
Mm.
So we're gonna have to see that. But let's talk about the way he plays. Obviously he plays one way. He plays one way. Obviously, we know we're not going to get into Fulham, but there was obviously wholesale changes and things were made, and obviously people took whatever he did or didn't do. Does he ever change going into Derby week? Is there not wholesale changes? Is there a slight change in style? Because obviously it's the big game. Is he a little bit more right? Would be a little bit more defensive to begin with, then, or is it non-stop? Right, off we go.
I don't expect him to play that way at all. I'm trying to remember the first Derby games, certainly the first one. Celtic lost 1-0 at Ibrox, and I have to tell you, I cannot remember that game. But I'll talk about that the home games first off, and then I'll come back and talk about what I'm expecting on Saturday on Sunday, because there's certainly been a lot of speculation in the media, but certainly amongst Spurs Twitter that I would change this, I would change that. So I'll go back to it. The couple of home games, Celtic won 3 and 4-0. They played with intensity that I've never seen before. The ball boys, and I know we had a problem with this on Saturday, but it was from the crowd. The ball boys were throwing the ball in. Celtic were moving, running at Rangers, who for some reason weren't anticipating what Celtic were going to be about, and Celtic just literally ran all over them. But they were in the home matches. There's been talk, for example, I've seen that we should go with Emerson on Saturday. On Sunday, maybe leave Kulusevski out and let give Johnson that role. I don't see it. Famous last words: if I see the team and those two are in it, and Kulusevski and Porro are out, but I do not expect him to change the team at all. I think that's his first choice starting team. I don't think he'll play Rishi. I think Rishi did brilliantly as an impact player, and I think he might do that again. I think with what's going on in his head, he needs time. He doesn't need to go on and the risk of him being anonymous and being hooked after 60 minutes and just taking him back to square one. I don't think he needs that. I expect him to attack. And I expect him to try and get control of that midfield with his inverted fullbacks and peg Arsenal back. That game, I can't remember what we got beat. Were we 3 down in no time? I went and did something in the garden. I couldn't stand watching it, where we were just totally outplayed in midfield and totally outnumbered in midfield. He'll be conscious of that, I think, and he will make sure that Porro and Udogie and what have you are stepping up to stifle the space. They'll miss Martinelli, I think. And I think Udogie is good enough to keep Saka quiet. I think he's an absolute revelation. So I expect us to have a lot of possession. I expect us to be really, really, really attacking with purpose and to be basically to outscore them. I do not anticipate a kind of let's keep it tight for 20 minutes. We might, but that's not how I think he'll play. I think they've got a game tomorrow night. So Arteta has only got, a couple of days, because presumably the players will get something approaching a day off to rest up. Depends on what team he plays in the Europa, mind.
You mean Champions League? Unfortunately, they're in the Champions League, not Europa.
Oh, good. So in the Champions. When they play, they must be playing tonight, aren't they? I've lost track of the days. Yeah, of course they are. They're playing tonight. Yeah. But so he'll play a full team in the Champions League. Yeah, he's got 3 or 4 days, but players will have to get a day off. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know where my brain went.
That's right. I mean, you look at it, you talk about that. Obviously,
I do not anticipate anything different. I expect him to try and go at it like he did, but with Burnley. The one area that Ange struggled occasionally, particularly in home games, was when teams played a low block, and you notice that with Sheffield United. Yeah. It was more of a struggle, albeit I think we created a lot of chances. We could well have been way ahead in that game, and I expect us to be creating chances. Arsenal will not play a low block, particularly at home, and I think that'll open it up for us. So I certainly don't expect us to get trounced, and if we get the kind of gubbing that we got couple of years back, was it last season?
No, the one with Nuno, season before.
The season before was just hapless. I cannot see that happening. You obviously fear it, because we all fear going into a North London derby away, but I just don't see that happening at all. Scoring goals.
You have to look at this going into this. I mean, obviously we've tackled our. And so going into this, obviously, it is huge. And I think for the first time in I don't know how long, we will be going into this game. And I can say right now, if we lose that game, it won't be for the lack of effort or commitment or desire or passion. Because as I've been saying, and I'd be keen to know you look at the last few North London derbies, especially the one you mentioned, we had players where They know the importance of Spurs Arsenal to us. They know, but they'd been there, seen it, done it. I think the emotion and the attachment to that game had worn off on the players. They're just like, we can just do what we normally do. There's no repercussions. There's no this. There's no that. And then it's like, we're sorry, blah, at the end. Well, you look at it now. Son and Romero probably will be the only players that have ever played in an NLD out of that team. And it will be the first NLD where you look at it, where these players will be like, right, this is a game we don't lose. This is our first time to shine. This is where we do it. And surely what Ange has been doing, which I'm sure he did at Celtic as well, where it's like the dressing room is yours now. You guys and obviously the trio lead it. I mean, what do you think about what I've just said, and also about the way that Ange has done that with the dressing room and said, like, this is yours, you do what you want, this is you to police?
Oh no, absolutely. But I think everything he does, I mean, let's take football out of it. Everything he does shows genuine, real leadership. And one of the things is it's such a contrast to Conte, because I mean, the one thing I was hearing, the under-21s got relegated last year. And one of the things I was hearing was the under-21s were joining in first team training, not to play, but to effectively become the cones. And the players were, when the ball's here, this is where you stand, this is where, and you don't move further than that, which is what I alluded to with Zuma. Whereas Conte, Ange is the exact opposite. Ange expects players to take responsibility on the field. And what you've seen is the players are absolutely accepting that responsibility. Footballers are artists. They're no different to actors or painters or, whatever. They want to go out and express. They're entertainers. They want to go out and express themselves. I mean, it must have been hellish going to work under Conte. It must have been even worse going out to play under Conte, thinking you're going to get yelled at if you move a yard out of position from the position he's allegedly coached you to play in. So these players will, and I think you're absolutely right, they will be told there will be a game plan. But within that game plan, they will be entitled to, told to think their way through. Interesting. This is my retro shirt with a number 4 on the back for Danny Blanchflower. And one of the important things is we're not quite at that stage yet, but Danny Blanchflower was he was the captain, but he was very much Bill Nicholson's voice on the field. Blanchflower knew exactly what was required, and he did it. And you can look at some other teams in history where where they had that, where the team captain knew exactly what was required and didn't need to take instructions from the side. Have you noticed Ange doesn't say very much? He's not yelling and pointing. He's just watching. And observing. I mean, and that's not to say he won't coach. He won't make a change. But he will expect players to know what their jobs are. And this is where I think there's a lot more to come. To know what their jobs are and to make the changes themselves that require to be made. And I think players, I mean, he keeps talking, what's interesting, he keeps talking about, I've got leaders out there, I've got good leaders out there. Well, two things. One, that never appeared to be the case under Conte. There's different players. There's some that are there that are the same. Son was there. Romero was there. But he's giving players a chance to lead, all of them, to lead and to sort of find their own solutions. And I think that's a wonderful way for, again, sometimes take football out of the picture. That's a wonderful way to be able to work when you're given the opportunity to think through problems and find solutions, rather than having to go to your boss every time. We run out of toilet paper. Well, go and get one and put it back, and put some in. Don't need someone else to tell you to do that.
Well, did you know what? Linking that as well with going back to Celtics was because Johnny picked this out, and obviously you know Johnny very well. He clocked it before me when the leadership team or the captain and vice captains were named. It took me a while to realise that he's picked a central defender, a central midfielder, and a central, obviously, striker, which is the spine of your team. Which makes it, was it the same as Celtic? Did he have 3 captains? Was it the spine of the team?
I'm not aware if he did. I missed it. I don't think so. His captain was Callum McGregor.
Okay.
And Callum McGregor plays the role that Bissouma plays.
Right.
So as you know, because we talk about, I mean, I've seen, by the way, people putting it Tottenham play 4-2-3-1. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing 4-3-3.
Same.
Yeah, with a holding midfield player, 1-6, 2 8s, and then your forward line, which has been Perisic or Solomon on the left. Whoops, sorry, I've just hit a button there.
That's right. It's all good.
Kulusevski on the right, and Son, you know, in the middle. That's the team I think as we've got at the moment. But it's not rigid. You know, he doesn't play this is what I mean about. I've slightly gone off tangent there, but that about a rigid formula like we had under Conte. So, for example, when Bissouma made that run in the first half, it was a weak left-footed shot at the end, but he was able to drive forward. That's a complete contrast to what the way Conte played, and he will expect, you know, his defensive players, all of his defensive players, to be able to get into offensive positions where possible. And Callum McGregor, although he was the sixth, the holding midfield player, he scored quite a lot of goals for Celtic because he was able to play that advanced role and break through. If there was a leadership group of two vice captains under, I have to tell you, I didn't notice it, but McGregor is captain of Celtic. He's also the captain of Scotland. So perhaps, and he played every game. I can't remember him not playing a game. But there was good leadership all over the field. You had Joe Hart in goal. You had Carter Vickers up front. You had Jota, Maeda, his left and right attackers. Or his right and left attackers, Kyogo up front. So he had good leaders. He had good players in the right positions there as well. No, I didn't notice it, but I do like the way he's got players that are taking really taking responsibility. I also like the fact, by the way, that he was prepared to take Son off, who was largely ineffective on Saturday.
Awesome.
And the fact that he was the captain, that doesn't make you immune from coming off. And I like that.
It's spot on. So it's moving towards the end of this now, but obviously this is the big game. I mean, you're like myself, I'm sure you're more confident going into this game than you have been at the Emirates in a long time. It's 13 years since we've done it. Is 13 for us going to be the lucky number? And if it is, just how mad are Spurs and the world going to go over Ange?
If we win, it will, particularly if we win well, playing that kind of football. I think the world will sit up and take notice. I think more importantly, Manchester City will sit up and take notice. They've got a lot of football to play, and they've started very well. But you wonder, can they sustain it? Can they sustain that motivation, having won, the 3 trophies last season, the big 3 trophies last season? I don't think that's easy. I hope it doesn't all go belly up and we get well beaten. I don't see that. I think there'll be a lot of goals though. If we lost 3-2, for example, it'd be our same old, because we need to tighten up at the back. We're losing goals, and we talk about Porro. Another goal on Saturday came from that right side of defence. So, from that inside left position for the opposition. We've conceded a few like that pre-season. And in the season, so we need to tighten that area up, and I know that's why some people think we'll play Romero. Say I don't think he'll go that route. I expect us to attack them, and I don't think they'll be used to being attacked the way they're going to be attacked on Sunday at home. I'd love to think we can win this game. If it was 2-2 or something like that, you'd say, yeah, fair dues, we'll take that. I think it would be really important that we don't lose either of the next 2 games. Lose against Arsenal, lose against Liverpool at home. Liverpool have been getting away with it a little bit as well. They should have got trounced at Newcastle. That game, 1-0, and they had Van Dijk sent off. Newcastle should have had that game long put to bed before was it Nunes scored the 2 goals and won the game for them. Wolves had a host of chances, could have easily been 2 if not 3 up at half time, didn't take them. I don't think we'll be making that mistake when we play them, but I think you always fear we're playing Arsenal and Liverpool, lose them both, and you're back in almost in mid-table and it's same old, but I don't expect that. And
so what's your score prediction? Let's have a score prediction.
3-2 to Tottenham.
Mate, that's exactly what I'm going, either 2-1 or 3-2, because like you said, I don't think the beauty of us right now, not just one game a week, I don't think any team in the Premier League who's trying to scout us and say, right, they're doing this, they're doing that, are going to have an absolute clue what to do. I think any team that come up against us right now are thinking, last few years have been, okay, do this, stop Kane, stop Son, done, go there. I think every team in the Premier League are in for a world of pain trying to figure us out, and it couldn't happen at a better place on Sunday. We've broken one curse already. They say things come in 3 in. The manager of the month curse, gone. Well, let's hope the second curse that he breaks is a win at the Emirates. But listen, Ian, where can people find you, good sir?
Yeah, well, I don't have my own channel, so I do whenever I'm asked on. But you follow me on Shaggy1712 on Twitter, and I'll always follow back.
There you go. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us. This will be out this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed the show, talking all things Ange and Derby Day. And as this is a show about Ange and nothing to do with a certain person, I'm not even going to do what I normally do. All I'm going to say is like, share, comment, subscribe. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, Big Ange. We love Ange Ball. Ange Ball, Ange Ball. I love Ange Ball.
Go on, you Spurs, yeah.
There you go.
Love the big.